is Chloe Demir of Save the Victor Roll. How's everybody doing today? Amazing, I hope. It is another video from your older than average YouTuber here on the YouTubes, and today we are building a palette. We are going to be building, as you will have probably have seen from the photo, is the Fantasy Cosmetica Wizard palette. We've got a pile of palettes here that we created our 9-pan palette with. So if you want to see what palettes we use, what shades we picked, what the final result is, and the look we created, wow, you're in the right place, and you know what you need to do? You need to keep on watching. So are we ready to build a palette? It has been a hot minute. The last one I did was the Bailey Syrian palette, so I think it's time to do another one. This palette has, or this brand has been kind of tweaking in my brain for a while. I've been really wanting it. We now have in Canada, it's called I Feel Beautiful Canada. It's in my province. They do are a distributor of indie brands, and they now have the Fantasy Cosmetica. So this palette has been, since they sneak peeked it and I had it on releases, something that I've been really interested in. So I thought, to see if I can kind of quell my need to get this palette, I wanted to see if I could build this palette. So it is a 9-pan palette. I think the shades that got me the most were the two yellow ones, because I do like yellow, but it's basically a blue palette with some yellows. So it's a mix of shimmeries and I think maybe a duochrome or two and some mattes. So originally when I was swatching and trying to find colors, the hardest one for me ended up being the second shade. And because it looks totally blue in the pan, but in the swatches it looks whitey silvery. So I thought it was probably a blue to a white shift. So I think that's kind of what I went for, because I had a color figured out, but then when I look at the swatches, I'm like, wow. So it was actually pretty easy for me to build this. I don't have tons and tons of blues in my collection, but or I don't have tons of yellows, even though I love yellows. But I did manage to find, especially a few of the shades on the bottom row, I found matches quite easily that at least look pretty close. We'll compare my swatches with the swatches on the photos as well to kind of see where we are. So first up, we've got here this, we found it was in the Nomad Whistler Snow Lodge palette, and it is a light matte blue shade, and then the shade that we found in here was the one called Snow Bunny. So it is this shade here. This looked the closest that I had in my collection to the first shade in there, so that was the one that I picked. And then when I'm looking at the swatches, it's funny, it also looks almost more white than blue, but I went in this case with the color that was in the palette and I matched it up more that way, because I wouldn't think a matte would shift, but the first shade in here definitely looks like a matte shade. So that was what I went into. Now the second one was the one that I mentioned that was really hard. And from that one, so originally I had picked, it was from another palette called Bora Bora. It was kind of like this shade here. I think it was Bora Bora. Can't remember anymore. It was a blue shade anyways, and it was kind of shimmery like that, and it looked like it did in the pan, but again, when I look at the swatches, it felt like it was a shifty from maybe white to blue, blue to white, blah blah blah. So I went with the Gourmande Girls and the Virtual palette. This one has a really, I gotta be gentle because this one came broken originally, but they have this shade here that is called a Vice, and ooh, this poor pink one just keeps going. And then I'll also show the single shades as I'm going along here. Some of the photos don't match up as well due to lighting, but here we are. So it is this shade called Vice, and as you can see, it has some different shifts in there, and it did look mighty white looking at theirs, but so I went with this one because it does shift. It has blue to pink to white kind of. Here, I think you can see a little bit of the blue. It's a very interesting one. So I thought that was the one that I was going to go as my closest. I did have a few other shades, but they definitely leaned way more towards the blue. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go with one of these lighter, toppery, shiftier shades, because that's kind of what it looked like on here. And I'll have swatches for those at the end. We'll have a chat on all of them too. But it looked very blue in the palette, but in the swatches, it looked very, again, more white than blue. So then for the third shade that I picked, this was in the Ace Beaute, and this was the one shade called Bali. This is the Oceanic palette. It is one of my favorite palettes. So originally I wanted to go with, I wonder what glasses would be helpful, right? I originally wanted to go, yes, it was Bora Bora that I thought matched exactly the photo of the blue, but it didn't match the swatch at all. So I'll just actually swatch on my other hand so you'll see what I mean. See, it looked like it, but this one swatches blue, and then the swatches in the photo do not look like that. Hence me going with one that has blue in it. See, there you go. And then shift some different colors. So the shade I picked for shade number 3 is called Bali, and it is a light bluish shade, but it's blue with almost like almost like a hint of purple. It's very, very pretty blue, but this is a nice matte shade, and it is matte. So I thought that one looked pretty close there. So that was the third shade, and that was Ace Beaute, and that is the Bali shade right there. So then next up, so like I said, I don't have a lot of yellows. I have a couple yellow palettes or yellow leaning palettes, but they actually didn't have the right shades of yellow. So these were quite different yellows, but I found some that I think were pretty close enough. So for shade number 4, I've got this Stack 'em Up palette. This is Health is Wealth. I had done a makeup bingo, you have the number still on there, where I was trying to use a shade from each of the palettes. So it is the shade called Dollar Decisions, which is the first yellow, and I think it was the closest because it's a very, very pale yellow. And in the swatches, I should have had the swatch picture higher up. It looked also like a very pale yellow, maybe even a little bit paler than this, with even more of a white back. But I think because this palette here is supposed to be more of a green leaning palette, there might be a little bit of green in the yellow, but it's still, to the swatches, this looked pretty close. So that's what I did for shade number 4. So again, it's from P.Louise, the Health is Wealth Stack 'em Up. And then for shade number 5, this one I found, I think it was one of the first shades I picked. So I thought, well, I'm going to grab this. This is from Likely Makeup, and it is the Ugly palette because it has a shade in here which was deemed the ugliest color of a few years ago. I can't remember what year this came out. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, somewhere in there. But anywho, the shade that I thought would work really well is the shimmery yellow, is the one that is called Luxe. That felt like it had the right, at least from the shades that I had the right shimmery ratio there. And it is so pretty. And I think it really does look, a lot like this swatch. I think theirs does have a bit of a shift. I think they definitely had more multi-chromes in there. This is just a strict shimmery yellow, but I don't have any that I remember seeing too much of a yellowy duochrome multi-chrome, but I still thought that was very pretty, and I thought that was close enough. Now, for the 6th shade in the palette, now this one, as you can see, looks a very purple. So, but it is like kind of duochromy, multi-chromy. And then when I was looking at the shifts, it definitely lent purple. So I went in the Age of Opulence palette, and it is, yes, by Beauty Bay. It's this lovely one here. Unfortunately, it is a limited edition palette, and it is the shade itself called Ace. So that is that shade there. The other one in here again looks like it could definitely be a shifty one. So I want to say maybe blue to purple, but this is more just a purple, but it definitely looked closer to the swatches. And plus I like that. That added a little bit of dimension. So that's what I picked. It's not quite the same match, but I'm still quite happy with that shade there. So that was a shade number 6, and that was from the Beauty Bay Age of Opulence palette. So shade number 7, this one is in the bottom shade of a darker blues. So the top one was lighter blues with some yellow to kind of this purpley shade into some different blues. So I picked the Midas Flower Bomb palette. This also unfortunately is not available anymore, and it is the shade Hummingbird, which is this shade here. This was actually a harder shade for me to find as well. I'm not, would I call this an exact match? No, but I think pretty close. I think it's in the right hue of blue. And this one may be a little bit lighter, but it is not too warm, not too cool. It just fits nice in that. So I thought that was really pretty. So there we go. That is Hummingbird from the Flower Bomb by Midas Cosmetics. I believe this is the first palette that they did that kind of went viral. They have my favorite my favorite yellow palette, Lemonade, of all time. So there we go. So that was shade 7. Now for shade 8, I went to, this one is one that I found quite a few in my collection that had this kind of hue of blue. And again, this is the Blueprint palette. I really like this palette. It's half blues, half neutrals, but these neutrals and blues go together so lovely. This one and the one green one I have is the same, where it's mostly greens and half neutrals, but they always pick the right ones to go together. So I picked the shade that is called King Stud, and that's that shade there. And I thought this one, it would be the right shade here. So that's shade 8. Oh, some of these palettes are getting a little long in the tooth. I'm definitely going to have to start doing a, where am I going here? Have to do a are they still good sort of thing to keep them, because my collection is getting pretty big and I think some of them are getting really long in the tooth. So that may be something that I need to do. When I was doing some swatching, there were definitely a few that I thought were like starting to go. One, I looked in there, there was a glitter that wasn't even working anymore. So definitely some of my older palettes may need to be decluttered. And then finally, we're gonna go back to Ace Beaute for the 9th shade and final shade. And again, it is in the Oceanic palette, and this is the shade Lagoon, and that is one of the darkest blues in the palette. And let's go like so. I did some big swatches again. And do I think it, swatching wise, does it look close? Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. This is a really nice blue. There's maybe a smidge darker, but again, I'm just swatching with my hand, so we will have to see what they are on our eye. So there we go. Here are the 9 shades that I picked to hopefully be a pretty close match to the Wizard palette by Fantasy Cosmetica. So I think it is time to play with this and do an eye look. So we will be back in 1 second. So now I'm ready. I just had to take pictures of my swatches and wash the majority of them off, and clean a little bit of my fingers off so I just don't drag a color everywhere. So I'm just going to prime my eyes with the Gerard Cosmetics. I'm again using a lighter one because there are some light shades in here. We're going to do ourselves a very blue look. I haven't actually done one in a while. I really do like a blue eye look. I had my base on already, as you can tell, when I started filming. So hopefully we don't make a messy mess. And I'm just going to do a fun little look with our colors here. I do like a blue, as I've probably mentioned ad nauseum, so I keep checking on Poshmark. I do, still kicking myself for not buying that huge, ginormous P.Louise blue palette that was in the, I believe, November mystery box. Keep hoping they're going to release it, or I see it on Poshmark, but so far, no bueno. Okay, so colors. Let's see, where do we want to go? I definitely want to add some yellows. So I think what I want to start with is, let's do the first yellow shade. So that was from the P.Louise. Trying to make this too that I don't drop things everywhere, because we got a lot of palettes going on here. So again, this is from the Stack 'em Up. This was the Health is Wealth, and then it was this shade that was called Dollar Decisions. We're going to take some of that with a floofy brush, and then we are going to use that on the, from the inner to outer edge. So, oh, this is such a pretty color. I haven't used this palette in a while, but let's go and take one of the darkest blues. So we're going to go into the Oceanic palette. This has the shade called Lagoon, which is the darkest blue. So we are going to take that and we are going to pop that on our outer edge. I'm going to also do that with a fluffy brush because I think I'm going to, am I rounding it? We will see. There we go. Beautiful blue. Blue and yellow looks nice together. That's a combo that I don't use very often. I'm wondering even if I have used that as an eye look combo. Maybe that's why this palette has been calling me so much, is that I just really like the idea of the yellow and blue combo. That side is going a little bit pointy. Maybe I'll do it a teeny weeny bit. Maybe just a little swoof out. Just a little. Yeah, just a little bit. How about that? That was the way that blue wanted to go, so let's just match it up. This Oceanic palette is one of my favorite palettes. It is, I think, the perfect color story of blues and greens, which I love to do together. This is the old formula. I was gifted another one, but I'm not sure if it's old or new formula, so I may do a giveaway of some of my favorite palettes at some point, because I do have two palettes that are my favorites that I have duplicates of. All right, that is looking really good. I like this, and I really love this palette so much. All right, so now we're gonna go pick just a lighter blue, I think, for the center. Let's look at the colors here. So we've got a dark edge. We wanted to do some yellow, so why don't we take one of the lighter shades? So we're going to use a shade 3, which I think might also be from the Ace Beaute palette. So it is going to be the shade Bali. So that is that shade there. So I think that's the one we are going to pop in next. Let's grab another brush here. Tapping it into the dark a little bit so that it gives a bit of a kind of a blend between the two, so it doesn't look, I hope, too sudden of a swap between shades. There we go. I think that looks super nice. So I'm going to take one more blue. I think I'm going to use the first shade from the Nomad Whistler palette. That was the shade called Snow Bunny. I'm just going to put that just a little bit before going on to the yellow shimmer, and then we'll do the bottom lash line. So yeah, so Snow Bunny is the one that's just a little bit lighter. I thought that might be a nice little gradation before adding a little bit more of that yellow and then the yellow shimmer on top. So just a little bit of Snow Bunny. I think that looks nice. See, so you've got that gradation from the darker to the medium into the light. There we go. That looks good. I might touch up just a smidge more of, there we go, and then a little bit more of our first shade Lagoon. I like that. That's super pretty. All right, actually before the shimmer and more yellow, yeah, let's go do the bottom lash line. That's a purpley shimmer. I think we're gonna leave that. So why don't we go in, no, hold on, into Midas. And then we're gonna go into, I think, to the shade Hummingbird. Yeah, so we're going to go into the shade Hummingbird, and we're going to bring that into our bottom. Try to use more of the shades here that we pick. So I'm going to grab an angled brush here, and we are going to go into Hummingbird. And then just so I don't get any fallout. And then we're going to, it's like still a darker blue, but it's a slightly lighter blue here. Okay, so we are now going to go back into a little bit into the yellow from the P.Louise. I'm just going to redo the front there a little bit, and then we're going to go into that shimmery shade. And then I think for the inner corner, we're going to use that that kind of blue white kind of shimmer. So let's just go again into the matte yellow, like so. Yeah, just to brighten that up a little bit. And then we are going to go into the It's Likely makeup. I think we've used all of the shades with the Age of Opulence so far. Where to go? Did the ugly palette just go? Palette slipped to the back of the drawer. Okay, so now we're going to go into this shade called Luxe. I'm going to grab, you should have another flat brush in here. I do. I forgot to bring some spray, but I think I remember this going on super nicely without needing any spray. So let's see. But yeah, we'll just have a little bit of fallout here. It's a very nice, soft, shimmery shade. There we go. Just brightens that. Then for the inner corner, we are going to go into the shade here. Again, I have to be very careful. This one's broken. So we are going to go into Vice. So that's that one there. That goes on really light, but has a bit of a blue to blue. I don't know if this one says it's more of a blue. I think it's a more of a blue to pink shift, depending on what it's near. But let's see here. Yeah, that's pretty. So I'm going to pull it more towards the bottom. So it goes from the center to the bottom because it's more blue. So I don't want to wreck our yellow. Okay, there we go. And then we need a bluer shimmer for the lid. So we trying to use every palette at least one shade here. So let's go into Blueprint, and then the shade we had picked here was the one that was called King Stud. So we're going to use that as our blue shimmer. I'm going to take the angled brush here. So there we go. I'm just going to make the outer edge all shimmery, I think. Yeah, melts are definitely not they're known just for regular shimmers. Nothing really spectacular. They're just your good, everyday, good on old lady eyes shimmers. Make sure that I'm not getting any fallout, because I'm actually really liking this look today. So I think then we've used all the shades in here. Use Ace. Hold the line. I don't think we used anything from Age of Opulence. So we do have this purple one that's called Ace. I don't know if there's anywhere we can put it. Let's see if I don't wreck the look. Maybe I'm gonna pop it in the middle a little bit in between the two shades there. So pretty. Just a little bit of extra shimmer. I think that worked okay. Because in that we can say we've used all the colors in the palette. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to go and finish up, and then we can have final thoughts and we can go over the colors that we... Here's our final look. What do you think? Blue and yellow, who knew? Everybody but me, apparently. I think this looks great. I like blue and yellow as a combo. I love yellow. Yellow is one of my favorite eyeshadow looks. If I'm looking just for something quick to go, yellow, little liner, little mascara looks fantastic. So I think we're going to be doing more of this. And yeah, so I just put a little bit of blue eyeliner in the waterline from Makeup Geek. Can't get it anymore, sorry. And then a little bit of blue eyeliner just along the lash line that I have from ZZ Cosmetics. And then a little bit of mascara. It is midday today and we can do editing and stuff, so I didn't really feel like lashes. I've got a whack of lashes coming. Ooh, hopefully they're gonna come coming from the UK. A friend is sending them, so it's gonna be a while, but I'm gonna start playing more with lashes, I promise. But here is our final look. I love it. So there is another, I think, successful build a palette. Is it exact? Of course it never is, but is it close enough? Can it stop the temptation? I think maybe it can. Okay, so here is the inspiration, the Fantasy Cosmetica Wizard palette. These are the original swatches that I picked and photos for our build. Here is my build. I think it's looking pretty good. I'm quite happy with the choices, but this is what it would look like if this was my palette from my collection. And here we are comparing the original to what I did. I think this turned out pretty good. What do you think? Did I get it right? Am I in the right ballpark? And then here are the swatches, me comparing theirs with mine. Seriously, let me know what you think. I think I did okay. But then I'm a weak person. Who knows? We'll see sometime. But anyways, that's it from me. If you like this video, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe. Maybe even hit that notification bell. If not, that's okay. We can still be friends and we can still build palettes together. As always, behave, make good choices. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye.